A claim making the rounds online says an AI tool analyzed ancient stone cuts at Egypt's Aswan granite quarry and came back with 94 confidence that they weren't made with primitive hand tools, that the closest match in its database was industrial rotary cutting technology, something humans supposedly didn't invent until the 20th century. Supporters of this theory also point to something else when people tried to recreate the marks using the diorite hammers. Egyptologists say, were used, the results looked nothing like the smooth curved cuts actually found in the quarry. And there's a stranger twist to the claim that the oldest cuts appear to be the most precise. And cuts get progressively rougher as time goes on, which would run backward from how technology normally develops. I want to be upfront. This is a fringe theory, not something backed by peer-reviewed archaeology or accepted by mainstream Egyptologists. A lot of the specific numbers in this claim, the 94 confidence, the 4-3 variation, the tool matching database, don't trace back to any published verifiable study. So treat this as an internet claim we're examining, not settled fact. Let's walk through what's being said and where the real explanations diverge from it. The site, Aswan Granite Quarry. The quarry sits on the banks of the Nile in southern Egypt. It's known today mainly for one thing: the unfinished obelisk, a massive block still attached to the bedrock, abandoned mid-carving. The Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities notes that the unfinished obelisk remains in the Aswan quarry and was abandoned because of flaws in the stone and multiple fissures. Proponents of this theory say that up close, some of the cut marks in the quarry look less like hand tool work and more like something machine-made long curved cuts, even spacing smooth flowing arcs. And they point out correctly that granite is hard, a 7 on the Mohs. Hardness scale tough enough that modern quarrying still relies on heavy machinery and diamond-tipped tools to cut it efficiently. The standard archaeological explanation is that ancient Egyptian workers used diorite and even harder stone as hammers, pounding the granite repeatedly until it fractured into shape. Estimates suggest thousands of workers operating in rotating shifts over the reign of a given project. Egyptological sources describe the quarry as providing important evidence for understanding ancient granite working processes, while the unfinished obelisk preserves visible traces of the quarrying stages. The debunking test claim. The theory cites an experiment where researchers supposedly built diorite hammers and struck granite blocks the way textbooks describe, expecting to reproduce marks like the ones at Aswan, and instead got rough, irregular dents with no consistent spacing. It's true that hammer and pound work does look rough and uneven compared to machine cutting. That's not in dispute. Where the theory goes further than the evidence is in claiming, this proves the ancient marks couldn't have been made by hand, at all experimental archaeology on ancient Egyptian stoneworking has actually been done for decades, and it has reproduced quarrying techniques including the use of copper tools with abrasive sand, wooden wedges soaked in water to fracture stone along natural fault lines, and pounding with harder stones that account for the tool marks found at Aswan and elsewhere, without requiring imported modern technology. The AI analysis claim. According to the theory, a system referred to as Grok AI was fed photogrammetry scans of the quarry, high-resolution 3D models built from thousands of photos, and asked to match the cut patterns against a database of tool signatures with no prior information about the site's age or the tools believed to have been used. The claim states the AI analyzed 847 individual cuts, measuring arc radius, entry angle, depth, and spacing, and found a total variation of just 4-3, compared to a typical 1222 variation you'd expect from repeated hand tool use. It claims the closest matches were diamond rotary tools, water jet cutting, and ultrasonic cutting with industrial rotary cutting, coming out on top at a 94 confidence score. It also claims entry angles across hundreds of cuts varied by less than 2 degrees, and that some of these marks appear inside narrow shafts too tight for a human to swing a hammer in. None of this is something you can verify independently. There's no published dataset, no peer-reviewed paper, and no named research team behind these specific figures that I can point you to. Numbers presented with this much precision without a citable source are a red flag. Rather than evidence on their own, AI pattern matching tools are also only as good as the training data and comparison set they're given. If a system isn't trained on the actual range of documented ancient hand tool techniques, it will naturally fail to recognize them, which is the same as proving those techniques impossible. The microscopic evidence claim. The theory also describes microscope findings, clean shear cuts instead of fractured crystal structure, spiral tool marks, localized heat signatures, and corundum, a hard abrasive mineral particles in the cut surfaces, arguing these point to rotary diamond abrasive cutting rather than blunt force hammering. Real Egyptological research does document tool marks, striations, and abrasive residue at ancient quarries, but mainstream researchers attribute these to known ancient methods. Copper saws and drills used with quartz sand itself, a hard abrasive as a cutting compound, a technique well documented in tomb art and archaeological finds, and capable of producing surprisingly smooth curved cuts in granite over time. The presence of hard abrasive particles in a cut is consistent with sand-based cutting, not necessarily industrial equipment. The backward timeline. Claim. The theories. Most dramatic assertion is that the oldest cuts in the quarry are the most precise, and that precision declines as you move toward more recent periods. The reverse of how technology normally develops based on dating. Red ochre paintings found layered on top of some cut marks. This is the part with the least grounding. Dating rock art layered near tool marks is genuinely difficult and contested even among specialists, and drawing a site-wide declining technology curve from it goes well beyond what that kind of evidence can support. It's also worth noting, plainly, mainstream Egyptology has an established, well-documented timeline for Old Kingdom quarrying, backed by tool finds, worker records, and comparable techniques traced across multiple sites, not just at Aswan, but at Giza and elsewhere. The bottom line. This is a viral claim built around specific sounding statistics that aren't traceable to any published research applied to a real, genuinely impressive archaeological site. The Aswan quarry and its unfinished obelisk are worth learning about on their own. They show real evidence of the scale and ingenuity of ancient Egyptian stoneworking. But an AI-proved ancient Egyptians used industrial rotary tools isn't a claim that holds up to scrutiny as presented, and it is accepted by archaeologists who study the site. What's actually true, ancient Egyptian quarrying was more sophisticated than cavemen with rocks. It did produce remarkably smooth results using copper, tools, and abrasive sand, and there's still plenty. We don't fully understand about exactly how some of the largest blocks were moved and finished. That's a genuinely interesting story on its own. It just is the same story as lost advanced civilization with power tools. What's your take? Do claims like this deserve more scrutiny before they go viral? Or is there something to the mystery around sites, like Aswan? Let me know in the comments.